I want to talk to you about one of the major excuses that we use as mankind, um, especially when we don't want to be accountable for something. We say, "But I didn't know." Now, didn't we do that when we was kids? We're growing up, and maybe our parents said, "Why didn't you do this?" or "Why did you do that?" And you go, "Well, but I didn't know." That's the way we do with God, and but God has revealed Himself to all mankind since the beginning of creation. In Romans 1, verse 18 through 20, it says that God has revealed His invisible attributes, His eternal power and divine nature to us in a way that is clearly seen and understood through what has been made. It is also saying that mankind is without excuse. See, there's no excuses. We can try to come up with some, like we did when we was kids, but I didn't know, you see. But the ones that have never heard the gospel, they will still be accountable because God put in each of us a conscience, knowing right and wrong. And based on whoever's culture you're in, you will be accountable based on that. And you'll truly see that there was the one true God, even in your culture, no matter how pagan it might be, no matter what it is, God reveals Himself. And we have to trust in that because God is fair and He's just. Now, like I said, in Acts 17, verse 16 through 34, it tells us of Paul when he was in Athens, Greece. And Paul was walking through the city, and let's just say he was seeing all the tourist sites and telling people about an event that was going to take place in the future by a man named Jesus. Now, in this city existed some very intelligent men who were philosophers. And they started conversing with him and asking him about what he had said. "We heard you were telling people about a resurrection." Now, they didn't really believe in a resurrection. And what is that? That's when your body will be joined or rejoined with your spirit and risen from the dead, just as Jesus did. When He died, He was buried, and He resurrected, showing that He had true life. He had the proof of His word of saying He is the bread of life, that He is the resurrection. So they took him to a place where all these philosophers would gather together to hear what anybody had to say. And Paul started telling about one of their idols that they called an unknown God. And why did they call it that? Because they weren't sure about the name. They weren't sure of the attributes of that God. They didn't know. And Paul says, "I see that you are a very religious people, because you have objects set up everywhere to represent your gods." And guess what else I found? An altar with an inscription on it says, "To an unknown God." Now they probably said something like this: "We know that there exists one God that created everything, but we don't know His name or who He is." And Paul says, "I know you didn't know." Remember what people say? "But I didn't know." But he says, "I know you didn't know." Paul was probably getting all excited and said, "What you worship in ignorance, I proclaim to you now. The God who made the world and all things in it, since He is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, or is He served or worshipped by human hands, as though He needs anything, since He gives to all life and breath and all things." This unknown God that you know nothing of is the one that I've been telling the people in town about. His name, I know. It is Jesus. And one day He is going to resurrect the ones who trust in Him. Some believed and some laughed. Some wanted to hear more. And many was, "But I didn't know." There's an old story about an old violin being touched by the master's hand. And you've probably heard variations of this story. But basically there was an auction, and this old man had taken an old violin up that he'd had stored for years, found in his attic. And it was, it had marks on it, and of course it wasn't tuned or anything. And he just offered it up, and the auctioneer looked at it and he says, "Well, let's can we get $20 for this old violin, or 50?" And there was a man in the audience. He says, "Wait, let me look at it." He looked at it. He took the violin and he started tightening up the strings and tuning it and kind of wiped it off. And he started playing it. Oh, it was such a beautiful sound that came out. You see, the auctioneer says, "Hey, can we get $1,000 for this? 2,000, 3,000, 5,000." See, what it took was the touch of the Master's hand. And that's what we need in our lives. We need the touch of the Master's hand. We're broken. We might be out of tune. Some of us think we have our lives together, but can you resurrect yourself from the dead? No. Jesus will do that for you. Now, you know, all will be resurrected one day. Some unto righteousness and some unto unrighteousness. The ones that will be with Jesus forever and the ones that will be without Him forever. But you can't use the excuse, "But I didn't know." So think about that. Think about putting your hands, putting your life into the hands of the one, the Master's hand, the one that has life. And you'll no longer have to say, "But I didn't know." Because you will know His ways. You will know who He is. His name is Jesus, Yeshua. Trust in Him with all your heart. Make Him Lord, owner of your life. Be blessed and have a great day.